In what has become one of the greatest deceptions of our day, radical environmentalism is striving to put America and the world under its destructive control. This so-called green dragon is seducing your children in our classrooms and popular culture. Its lust for political power now extends to the highest global levels. And its twisted view of the world elevates nature above the needs of people, of even the poorest and the most helpless. With millions falling prey to its spiritual deception, the time is now to stand and resist. Today's environmental movement is something your parents and grandparents would never recognize. Forget about friendly neighborhood groups, cleaning up highways, planting trees, or recycling aluminum cans, all very sensible things. Around the world, environmentalism has become a radical movement, something we call the Green Dragon. And it is deadly. Deadly to human prosperity, deadly to human life, deadly to human freedom, and deadly to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Make no mistake about it, environmentalism is no longer your friend. It is your enemy. And the battle is not primarily political or material, it is spiritual. Hello, I'm your host, Janet Parshall. The Apostle James wrote, "Resist the devil, and he will flee you." In the face of the green dragon, we need a whole generation of dragon slayers. The Resisting the Green Dragon video series will give you the armor you need to rise up, slay the green dragon, and promote the true gospel of Jesus Christ.
As a former pastor, I'm always on the alert to threats to the Christian faith. And make no mistake about it, environmentalism is exactly that. It is its own religion.
Public schools today, our television programs today, movies today, like Avatar and others, are teaching our kids that there is a new gospel that we need to get behind.
The environmental movement has actually become what I call the cult of the green dragon. And we need to be prepared as Christians to rescue people from that cult.
Increasingly, I believe Bible-believing Christians are becoming aware and as a result, more concerned about the underlying philosophy of the radical environmental agenda and how it's pointing people away from God and into humanism.
Environmentalists have a long history of believing and promoting exaggerations and myths.
Environmental science simply does not have a good track record, not at all. Their false assertions are based more on their own morbid, pessimistic fears, not on any good science.
From A to Z, LR on apples to zero population growth, exaggeration, myths, and outright lies are commonplace in the environmental movement.
When we think about science, we think about the truth. Yet in so-called global warming science, we've gotten a lot less than the truth many times.
Our young people today are being brainwashed with a constant barrage of nonsense, including breathing out carbon dioxide is causing Mother Earth to heat up.
Such exaggerated or baseless fears lead to unreasonable policies that can do far more harm than the things feared.
Many of the policies that environmental groups and even these evangelical groups got behind were ones that would consign the poorest of people around the world to grinding poverty, to disease, to premature death.
Folks, this shouldn't happen. We need to stop the war on the poor.
Political scientist Charles Rubin equated environmentalism with everythingism. It is concerned about everything, and it wants to regulate everything.
Policies to fight global warming will expand government and shrink liberty locally, nationally, and globally.
Authority quickly goes corrupt because men and women are sinful. If indeed there is a global authority created to solve this problem, there will be massive corruption.
Some who are at the extreme have sensationalized things to the point that they feel that the crisis is so heavy that they actually have to limit the number of people who are living in a certain area, or even the number of folks who are on the earth.
They don't see humans as the Bible, as God sees them, that human beings are made in the image of God, and they have dignity, they have worth, they have the right to life.
Mankind is the apex of creation. He placed it over the planet, over the environment.
At the heart of this push for population control is an unbiblical view of children and of life.
God created human beings, and He created the earth for their habitation.
We must be active in glorifying God by caring for our creation, yes, but by caring for the thing that God cares about the most, the souls of men and women, boys and girls, that they might come to know Christ. That must be our end and aim.
Children are naturally susceptible to deception. Not surprisingly, the Green Dragon targets your children more than any other group. It subjects them to a steady drumbeat of environmental propaganda that contradicts the Christian perspective.
The facts are that the vast majority of kids that attend church every week when they're children stop attending church at all when they're adult. We lose them, and we lose them in the battle for ideas. The greening of the student mind begins with environmentalist fear-mongering from the very beginnings of formal education. But in truth, it begins even earlier with movies and television. Avatar was a $3 billion box office success with all of its Oscar-winning 3D artistry. What was the premise? Humans have trashed the Earth, and now they're invading other planets to rape them as well. As Ruth Dothert correctly notes in the New York Times, there's a gospel at work here. But it's not the Christian gospel. Instead, Avatar is director James Cameron's long apologia for pantheism, a faith that equates God with nature and calls humanity into religious communion with the natural world. That's the worldview of the Green Dragon. The UN website for kids called Tunza is an example of the UN's approach to this. Children are taught that if they use fossil fuel products or if they take a ride in a car, that they, along with others who do these things, are responsible for climate change, which is in turn responsible for killing 3.5 million kids a year by starving to death, and it's going to get worse. And so you connect the dots. Little kids are shamed into believing that by taking a ride in their family car, they've been responsible for starving a child to death in some third world country. Well, there's no facts to support such nonsense, and scaring little children to achieve your political ends is reprehensible.
The Great Threat is a worldview threat that then moves out from being a worldview threat to be a threat to economics, a threat to the poor, a threat to the human race.
At a United Nations summit on global warming, then French President Jacques Chirac boldly stated that for the first time, humanity is instituting a genuine instrument of global governance, the first component of an authentic global governance. Now, just what did he mean by that? And how was environmentalism being used to advance global governance? Well, the fact is, the policies of environmental leaders have become so far-reaching that in reality they can only be implemented under a global government that would control every aspect of your life.
Environmentalism is part of the larger philosophy called post-structuralism. And in post-structuralism, what they say is we divide ourselves into various groups, but not into various nations. We're all part of one globe. And so there's always a global emphasis with environmentalists, as there are with so many others that are part of the post-structural movement.
The Green Movement threatens liberty because it wants to use government to control every aspect of our lives. It wants to remake the whole of life, in public and in private, personal life and family life and business life and government life.
What the government's saying is we can run your car companies better, we can run your banks better, we can run the stock market better, we can run everything better, including your family. We can make better decisions about your children.
The Green Dragon speaks of global problems requiring global solutions, and it uses that word global in two senses. For one, it wants to affect every different aspect of your life. It also says environmental problems go across national boundaries, and so we need global governance to solve those problems.
Now, there are some real environmental problems in the world, but not every problem is a crisis, and even the serious problems do not necessarily require centralized political control over people and resources, which is usually counterproductive. We cause lots of problems, but we're a creative species, and we also fix a lot of problems and come up with new solutions.
Al Gore, in his book Earth in the Balance, published in 1992, said that preventing global warming should be the new central organizing principle of human civilization. Gore himself, after the passage last summer of the Waxman-Markey cap and trade bill in the House, who told a gathering in London that the bill's passage was a helpful move toward, quote, global governance, unquote. Al Gore understands what he's seeking here. Or think about the European Union President Herman Van Rompuy at the UN General Assembly on November 22 of last year, who said, the climate conference in Copenhagen, which at this point was just 2 weeks away, the climate conference in Copenhagen is another step towards the global management of our planet.
Within the environmental movement, we are seeing that lust for power, that lust for controlling others, for dominating others, very much coming to the fore. And again, if you control the economic rules and regulations, you control the economy, therefore you control the behavior of people.
As Christians, we must actively trust God and obey His Word. So when it comes to environmental stewardship, we must reject the false worldview, the faulty science, and the counterfeit gospel that threatens to corrupt society and the church. We must exercise wise dominion over the magnificent planet God has entrusted to us. And we must defend freedom, human life, and the poor. This is Janet Parshall, and I want to thank you for your time and for your prayerful consideration on this most important topic. To learn more, visit www.resistingthegreendragon.com and order the complete conference.